And welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. And we are here for another Midday Show. We're still adjusting. We don't have a new countdown yet. We're still trying to figure out exactly. Today we did like the, are you ready? I'm ready. Are you ready? And I pointed.
So why don't you tell him what rude thing you said to me about 45 seconds ago?
Well, first of all, tell everyone what you did before we get started.
You're like, are you ready? I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Wait a minute. Where's my microphone?
And then I said, if people only knew what I was working with.
No. You said if people only knew what I was bleeping working with. And it was insulting and hurtful.
The bleeping could have been very pleasant. No one knows for sure. No one knows for sure. We're going to bounce.
It is. I have made it clear. I am no bones about it. You are the technological guy that runs it. I just sit here and look straight ahead and talk.
I kept it as simple as possible for you.
We all have a role. This is my, I specialize, and this is what I do.
We're going to bounce around today. We have some local stories for you, a couple of theft stories. It's also Giving Tuesday. And then I thought I pulled up AP, I pulled up Google News, and I thought maybe we would just bounce around some topics. I know there's some stuff that we want to talk about as far as like college football. I also want to touch on the Maxwell trial. I'm not letting the Maxwell trial go. We are talking about it at some point.
It's too bad you weren't on that jury.
I'm pretty sure I would have got tossed. I'm pretty sure. So we're going to talk about some of those things as well.
Can you be non-biased? No.
Not about that one. I cannot. No. Real quickly, Giving Tuesday, for those who don't know, if you've been online or if you've been on social media, I'm sure you've come across it. It's a day to support any organization or local business or company that you feel is worthwhile or has affected you somehow. And if you go to NorthcentralPa.com, obviously, independent news source. We are a for-profit. However, the things that we try to give to you, we give them to you for free. We don't hide anything behind paywalls. We don't hide anything behind subscriptions. If you are feeling generous enough, if you can afford it, if you get the opportunity, if you go to NorthcentralPa.com today, you will see a bunch of little donation tiles. Some of them say support, some of them say your help, some of them say donation. So if you get the opportunity, please take it to help out NorthcentralPa.com. And that way, Mark and I can keep coming on here every day at noon. Well,
and not to be overly serious, but the purpose of the press is to be like the watchdog to make sure that, I don't say corruption doesn't happen, but to kind of be someone who can officially and honestly and objectively call people out that are in elected positions or in, positions of authority. And that's why it was designed. And with the death of newspapers and or the slow, whether you want to say it's a slow death, or newspapers certainly don't have nearly the impact, a tenth of the impact that they used to have because everything's online. But now, as we realize, we see things online and we're not sure what's credible. And so there are news organizations like ours that have popped up around the country, and we are trying to look at budget meetings and, city councils and what mayors are doing and we continually, you'd be surprised how many emails we get from just normal citizens like you who are like, hey, you guys should look into this. You should look into that. You should look into this. Well, and we look into what we can look into, but we have limited staff because, at the end of the day, we still have to pay people to do it. So if you can give, like Jeff said, it's free. With the newspaper, you had to pay whatever, $50 a year, $100 a year, whatever it was. If you gave that to us, gave a portion of it to us, whatever the case may be, the more money we make, the more we're being interrupted rudely, but by famous people. Famous people were just in the hallway.
Who was famous?
The more I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Oh, okay.
But right. I'll tell you off the air, but I don't know. Okay. It was but anyway, the bigger the staff, the more stories we can cover. And so it would be kind of like your good deed for the community. Again, we are for profit, so you can't write it off.
Yes.
But there's a community service aspect that if all organizations like us and the Sun Gazette, if they all die off, then who's watching the hen house?
Yes.
So we feel like we have an important value to society, and the community has responded to that because they have reached out to us with stories of concern, because we will be the ones that follow it.
Yes. And I would say, hopefully it's us. If not, support any local news that you can. The other thing that I want to say, and I truly, truly believe this, I believe we're the only public utility that is free. So when you think of the things that make a society run, electricity, water, gas, whatever it may be, your roads, your highways, those are all paid for or come out of your taxes. We are the one utility, information, public information, access to that information. We're the one public utility that is provided for free right now.
What about radio?
Radio's close. Radio's close because you still have to, well, yeah. Is it radio?
I would say radio would be just as free.
See, that's very millennial of me that I didn't think of radio.
Because do you have one?
Do you know the last time I've listened to the radio? Like just like a true FM, like AM radio?
When you're in your car, you never listen to the radio?
Oh, never. It's almost always something on my phone. Always. It's either a podcast or it's Spotify or it's YouTube. It's something off of my phone. No AM or FM radio in the car. So very millennial of me. However, we're one of the only free public utilities. And that's the one piece that has always stuck with me as we started this.
So, and that's also, this is where we get to support our sponsors because they are the ones that keep us here. You see Wise Markets across the top of the screen. And we have, so UPMC does so much for us. Yes. Please, Alexander, Horizon Federal Credit, the list kind of goes on and on. We're adding new ones all the time. So anyway, and as you mentioned, so as we get through this,
yes,
Friday was Black Friday.
Yes.
Monday is well, then you have the weekend.
Yep.
Monday is Cyber Monday.
Yes.
Tuesday is Giving Tuesday. And then Wednesday is, can you freaking believe it's December already, Wednesday?
Yeah.
As that's what we will have tomorrow.
I've always found an irony that Giving Tuesday comes after Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Well, Black Friday was first.
I understand that, but there's always kind of been, you'd almost be better off having Giving Wednesday or Giving Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
When people aren't broke yet?
I've always found a little bit of irony.
In the modern day, people aren't broke until the credit card bill shows up.
That's true.
You can buy whatever you want now and you're fine.
That's true.
Keep buying it. Can I tell you what happened to me last night, by the way?
Go ahead.
Which is just stupid. And maybe I'm the only person this has ever happened to. I was scrolling through Instagram.
Okay.
And I came across, I follow a bunch of rock and roll bands on Instagram, old 80s bands, because, I'm old. Yeah. So one had this thing, because it's Cyber Monday, you could go to their store and it was up to 60% off.
Okay.
So I do. And I'm clicking through and I'm scrolling through the t-shirts, and there's a $30 t-shirt, which for the people quick, 60% off is $12. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't tell me what shipping and handling is, and I think I'm going to get ripped off with shipping and handling. But this shirt for $12, I need this shirt.
Okay.
Well, I'm clicking through and all this stuff, and I'm going to use PayPal because blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, I click on the wrong thing, and it sends me back to the original page.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, I just go in again. It's still in my cart.
Okay.
I click on it, and now instead of $12, it's $30. And now I'm like, what just happened? I am pissed. It turned to midnight. So the Cyber Monday ended.
Yep.
And because of a wrong click, so I was like, forget that. I don't need the shirt for $30. For $12, it was a good shirt. For $30, this ain't a good shirt. But I must have started, I was just laying in bed and I was scrolling through, and I must have started at like 11:55.
So can we talk about that psychology of shopping just very quickly? Because we do have theft stories. We got stuff we want to talk to. So
this is shopping season.
Let's shopping. Yes. So this is, have you, in fantasy drafts, like when you do like fantasy sports drafts, they've gone from like this pick by pick style to auction style. Okay. And the irony with the auction is, you always end up with money you didn't spend. Always. There's very few people at the end of it. And so after it ends, I'm always like, oh, I should have why didn't I spend 25 on that guy and let so-and-so grab them? Okay. And what I found myself is I will start applying that now when I am shopping. Like I'll start applying it to like, yeah, if I would buy that shirt for 20, why would I not buy it for 30? I'm clearly going to like the shirt. I'm clearly going to enjoy the shirt. I'm going to wear the shirt. So I have almost psychologically trained myself into asking, like, not so much the dollar figure of it, but how much am I going to use it? So if I see like this, I wear this coat all the time now. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have bought this coat because I would have been like, oh, like it's too much. But now I look at it and I'm like, well, I'll use it every day. I will wear this shirt all the time.
And I'm not a shopper, but when I do.
So are you going to regret not buying this shirt?
No.
That's my question
No.
to you. You don't think so. The $18 in your pocket right now is just so much better than that $12 shirt you had to have.
It's $30 in my pocket. But see, that's the thing. I didn't have to have it. I was beating the system. When I was getting it for $12, I was going to beat the system.
But wasn't the system beating you, though? Because you clearly don't need this shirt. Clearly, you've already determined
I don't need it. I mean,
correct. So didn't the system beat you, that they had you psychologically tricked that you needed the shirt for $12?
Don't you go to the clearance racks and just look through?
I love the clearance racks. That's where I do most of my shopping, is the clearance racks.
So when you get something off the clearance rack, so if you get, it's like going to the outlets. And my son and I were in the outlets in Philly this summer, because he's a baseball tournament. And I got some Nike shirt. There was some deal for 3 for $30 or whatever.
Okay.
It's a better shirt when you only have to pay $9.99 for it than when you pay $19.99. Yes, it's better. It's better.
I think they've worked you. I think they've won you over. I think they have you convinced, because you clearly don't need this shirt. You've already determined you don't need it.
Correct. I don't need it. So, I have shirts.
They have psychologically made you believe, once they dropped it to $12, you now need that shirt.
No.
Yes.
It's not. Yes. They're not convincing me that I need it, because I obviously showed them, because I told them, I gave them the double bird after they jacked the price back. And that's what I thought at first. I was like, you crooks. What happened? And I looked at my phone and it said 1200. And I thought, son of a gun, I missed out. But it's not that I need to have it. It's just that it was a bargain. So that makes it, I just won. I won that little battle.
The psychology of shopping is incredible.
Well, I see it all. When you were talking about $20 to $30, in real estate, we deal with this all the time.
Yeah.
Because when people get in bidding wars, and when there's multiple, and the way the market has been lately, you've got multiple people. So say their limit is, $200,000, and they're like, I won't go above $200,000. And then they're like, okay, well, if you find out that they sold it for $205,000, are you going to be okay with that? Or are you going to kick yourself?
Sure.
And then the question that comes back to people is, their answer is, I don't know. Because how am I going to feel if I realize that they got it for? So it is in home shopping, it's just magnified, because most people, their home is the biggest purchase they'll ever make. Sure. So the people who can come to with like, it was either meant to be or it wasn't meant to be, those people have a better life than the rest of us, because they're like, yep, this is my limit. If I don't get it, it wasn't meant to be, and they move on to another house. And there's a lot of people who can't do that, who are just like, oh, what if they do this? And what if they do this? And if I stop at 200 and they go to 201, I'll jump off a bridge.
It's funny. So to me, it sounds like there's two different types of people then.
There
are people where the limit is the dollar amount. And then there are people where the limit or the decision is black and white. Do I need this or do I not need it? And those are two very different people.
And I think the people who can set a limit and live with it have a peace of mind that they're not going to second guess themselves.
See, I think I'm the opposite. I think I'm black and white. I think I see something and I either 100%, this doesn't change my life, this doesn't change what I want or what I need. Or I'll see something and I'm like, I will use that every day. I will wear that every day. That will be one of my top 5 favorite shirts. I don't care if it's 50 or 5. Like, that is
right. Well, that's one on the other side. Like, say I'm dealing with the seller, and they have a number, like they're hell bent that their house is worth $200,000 and they're going to get $200,000 worth out of it. And the best offer they get is $195. Now, in this market, in a normal market where, houses sit on the market for months. And there have been times that I've said to these people, listen, we're talking, these people they're older, maybe they're retired. I was like, I don't know all their personal finances, but I have an idea that they're not broke. And you say, listen, whether you get this extra $5,000, like, you've made this a battle, you've drawn a line in the sand. Is this $5,000 ever going to come into play in your life? or your 3 kids going to inherit it one day and split it up?
That's what I'm asking you. Is this $18 going to make a difference? Would Jimmy rather have the $18 or would you rather pass that shirt on to him? That's what I'm asking.
Well, he would only get 6 because I have 3 kids, so they would get the 18. But he would hate the shirt because he would think the band sucks and he would never wear it.
That's fair.
Although I have found out that the black rock and roll t-shirts, my daughter has an AC/DC shirt that I bought her that she wears, and she's not really an AC/DC fan. She has a Pink Floyd shirt, I think,
this is
that
fascinating.
She wears.
Keep going.
So they if they think the shirt's cool, even if the band sucks. Not that any of those bands suck, but the youngsters don't know what good music is. Like you don't know what good music is.
Sure.
So anyway, yes.
Okay. Local news, local theft. This was by our own Brett Crossley at NorthcentralPa.com. You can check out the full story. A local lodge discovered theft of almost 200,000. I believe it was 180,000 total. Outside of South Williamsport. I had asked you before, have you ever heard of the Loyal Order of the Moose Lodge?
I've driven by the Moose Lodge. It's outside. Never been in it.
Okay, in South Williamsport. I personally had never heard of it. That is a fantastic name. And then I asked you too, it's kind of like a VFW.
I think it's,
kind of like one of those, like
I think
a club.
It's just a social club.
Like a club. Probably have to have a card.
Yes.
If anyone's ever been there, please comment because I'm fascinated. But first of all, I would love to see. That's a branding play if they haven't dove into it yet. That needs shirts and hats.
Yeah, and I don't know where they came up with it. Like what the original, like why a moose, but anyway, when I first see this story, and I think you probably have the same thought. I bet 90% of people have the same thought. How much money can the Loyal Order of the Moose Lodge in South Williamsport have? It's not like they have billions of dollars. How does one person think they can sneak $180,000 out of this? It's not $1,800. People can get away with that.
Sure.
$180,000
is a lot.
Because sooner or later, somebody's checking. And when you're in a club, like when you're on a Little League board, there's one treasurer. We read the treasurer's report every meeting, but we don't follow up with the treasurer. That's why we have an audit every year.
Sure.
So somebody else checks it. But when you're one of these clubs, they don't have a whole accounting office. They have one lady who has the checkbook, probably needs 2 signers, but there's like one person in charge of it. So there's a very trustworthy aspect of it. But how does that one person think that they can get $180,000? If she was at Nike and they have $180 billion, there's a chance. At the Loyal Order of the Moose Lodge in South Williamsport, I just don't know how you think you're going to get away with this.
So I think with a lot of this stuff, and I'll just I'm not a psychologist, take it all with a grain of salt. I think with a lot of this stuff, it waterfalls, right? Like you get away with that first $5, and then, well, if I got away with 5, I can get away with 50, and if I can get away with 50, I can get away with 500, and the next thing you know,
and before you know it, you don't even know what the total has come.
Well, before you know it, like you're just kind of chipping away, getting away with it, and and to your it doesn't say in here. It just says that they were an administrative clerk from late December 2016 to June of 2017. But it doesn't. That's a short amount of time.
That's 6 months.
It's not a lot of time. So I wonder if that was the period of time in which 180,000 was actually taken, or if it extends beyond, because that short amount of time seems. Now you say like how much money some of these clubs and stuff like this. There's another story that we have on NorthcentralPa.com. Somebody went off with $4,000 from a game of skills machine. And I believe that at the Loyal Order of the Moose Lodge, that was kind of part of this shifting of the money. Was they were able to get into these game of skill machines, which is just, coins, like it's cash,
right.
And essentially it wasn't transferred over. I'm going to read through the article real quick, but I believe like when you say how much money are some of these places bringing in, the game of skills machines, I've never played one personally. Every time I walk in somewhere where these machines are in the corner, whether it's like a beer distributor, a laundromat, like wherever they are, club, there is somebody sitting at these machines constantly.
Yes.
It's, and I don't.
Do you know how much skill they take?
Well, they're luck, right? They're games of luck. Isn't that part of it can't be gambling, right? They have to be.
I don't know
games of
what the
chance.
skill is other than you press a button. Because I asked a buddy of mine was in a mini market and he was playing it. And I went over and I said to him, is there any skill in this? And he said, no, you just put your money and you press the button.
Well, listen, I think that's part of the legality of it is they have to be games of chance. There can be no actual math or odds or statistics behind it.
Without the argument about poker was, as these guys have said, it's gambling, and they're like, it's not a game of chance. It's a game of skill.
Okay.
And there's a reason that the same guys get to the finals of all these tournaments because it's not about luck. It's about skill. So that's where it all came down to that, you know, because if it was just luck, you could sit any 7 people around a poker table and it would be luck, but the same people win all the time. Okay. So yeah, I don't know. They do make money, but 180 grand, dude. That is a lot.
According to the affidavit, the theft was entrusted to manage employees of the lodge, account for both food and liquor sales through various small games payroll, gaming payouts, and then sales through various game of skills machines.
And unfortunately, I would assume the money's gone. And the ability for the Moose Lodge to recoup this, I think, is probably slim.
The cash side of it is always the hard part to find, to follow, to trace. But yeah, so that is a part of it. So there you go, local theft. I need some loyal. If there's anybody out there, I need some loyal Order of the Moose Lodge gear. Do they have gear? I'm hoping that
I would suspect they have gear.
They probably have like some crew necks, maybe some trucker hats, something along those lines.
It is an interesting why the Loyal Order of the Moose. I don't get it.
I love it. It originally started out right behind Jersey Shore State Bank on Market Street, 3rd Street.
Okay.
I love that name. That name is where it's at.
Wait, on the Williamsport side.
That's what it sounds like.
Because now it's in Southside.
Correct.
Huh.
Correct.
Interesting.
It's interesting. Anything else that you wanted to talk about today? I was going to go through some topics here on the news. We
kind of got into this earlier, and this is it's touched around football, but it's not about football. It's just about leadership and all these things in general. But if you hadn't seen, if you're not a football fan, Oklahoma's coach, James Franklin was rumored to go to USC a couple weeks ago, and then he signed the extension stay at Penn State, and USC signed Oklahoma's coach, who is this young wonderkin. Everybody loves this guy. The NFL loves this guy. He decided to go to USC for like $100 million. Like 24 hours later, Notre Dame lost their coach as he went to LSU for $100 million. And my first thought is, let's start with this. The Brian Kelly story. Brian Kelly was the Notre Dame coach, and it was leaked. Yes. There wasn't even a hint of this going on until yesterday. He was flying back to Notre Dame last night, and he was going to have a meeting with his team this morning.
Sure.
And somebody leaked it. They assume out of Louisiana that somebody leaked it. So he sent a text to his players.
Yes.
You did not like the text.
Let's start with the thing that you and I agree with, which is there is a hypocrisy to college coaching that you and I completely agree
Huge
with.
Hypocrisy.
That they're able, first of all, they made all this money over all the years, never stood up for the players to make their fair share.
Right.
There is a very much a dictatorship that is allowed and almost cherished in college sports.
Yes.
That I've never really truly understood.
Yeah.
That is the part that you and I agree with. The part that you and I butted heads on, he sends a text to his players, and the part that I agree with you on is that, like, what is he supposed to do?
Right.
Like,
once the
cat's a bag.
And they weren't wrong. It'd be one thing if he could say to the players, they're lying, I'm staying, but he's leaving.
My issue with the text is it's wordy. It's about a paragraph, it's a sturdy paragraph long. And within the paragraph, he almost tries to, at one point he tries to apologize. At one point he tries to explain himself slightly. And then at another point, he tries to say, this isn't how I essentially wanted this to go down. None of those things are wrong or rude or incorrect. But what I said is what it clearly shows is a disconnect with his players. Because to me, This is somebody who I have no doubt preached commitment. I have no doubt he preached relationships. He preached brotherhood. All of these things that are supposed to make you this tight-knit group, this family that can go out and conquer the national football stage. And so my issue with the text is nobody who's really close with somebody, that's how you deliver that message, or that is how you text afterwards. You don't. The example I gave was for you and I, like if we have something important to talk about, your text will be like, can I call you? End of text. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to try to like soften up the blow. You don't like, it's just, can I call you? Or can you meet me tomorrow? Or this text to me showed a clear disconnect between the relationship between him and his players, because that text should have simply been meeting tomorrow morning, or he should have already had this conversation with the players. And I get it got leaked. Like it didn't go the way he had planned. But I mean, even if you know this is happening, if you're really close with those players, you're having the conversations. Like they know where you are. They know who you're talking with. And so to me, there was a very clear disconnect. I'm sure Brian Kelly is a nice person. I'm sure this is not what he wanted to have happen. I'm not sitting here saying he's the devil, but what I'm saying is like college sports strikes again. To me, it's just a clear evidence of the disconnect.
I agree. And I think it's the ego of the people who are in charge, whether you're a coach, whether you're a boss, whether you're a principal, wherever you are, that you're at the top of the food chain. And there are all these people underneath kind of working for you, or their efforts make you better. That while all that's going on, they always preach you need to keep doing what you're doing, basically for me, to make me look good. Mm-hmm. Whether you're a coach, whether you're a principal, whether you're a boss. Like the boss wants the sales team to do great, not for them, but for him.
Sure.
For the boss. So you have to do it, blah, 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 blah. But then when I turn around and leave, it's okay for me to leave, mm-hmm. because it's my decision about me and you need to live with it.
Sure.
But when you need to leave, well, now you've let us down because people were counting on you and how, this person was. And that is, it's the problem with college sports. The coaches think they're more important than the players. There's no doubt about that. And if Brian Kelly's quarterback had stepped up right now and said, listen, I know we have a bowl game coming up. I know we might be in the Final Four and we might have a chance to win the national championship. But my agent has told me, and people have told me, that I am a top 10 draft pick. And the only way I'm not a top 10 draft pick is if I get hurt. So all I have to do is stay healthy between now and the draft. So I am not going to play anymore. Brian Kelly and every coach in the country would talk about disloyalty, and we've been in this forever,
Sure.
and we've done this and we've done this. But when Brian Kelly gets offered $100 million, he's ready to fly. Mm-hmm. And that, it's not just, college sports exemplifies it more than anyone else, but it's anywhere in the company. I mean, how many bosses sell the company off and the people inside have no idea that their job is in jeopardy until the day it's sold?
Sure.
Why? Because it makes the sale better. It makes the boss better. So they crap on all the lower people to keep themselves good. And it happens all over society. And this is just another example.
Everyone's talked about already, like the problems with the NCAA, and we're going to look back and people are going to be like, I can't believe that was the system. Like, I cannot believe we did that as long as we did.
I can.
But the part that's really going to be like, this is the part no one wants to talk about, the enablers of the system. And when I look back and I think about who really enabled this system, it is not the commissioners. It is not the people that ran the NCAA. It is the coaches who were lining their pockets year after year after year. And they were cherished. There's statues of these dudes. And the reality is, like 20, 30 years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to be like, they didn't do as much as we thought they did. Really, really, they worked the system, and the people that made them look so great got nothing out of it.
But the reason it doesn't surprise me is because it worked for the fans. The fans don't care about the players.
The fans do now more than they did before.
Maybe. It's very, like college sports, very gladiator-ish. Mm-hmm. You know who the show was? The Gladiators. You know whose jobs sucked the most? The Gladiators. They weren't making any money, but the people came and cheered, and they were, are you not entertained?
But the difference in that analogy, though, was like you didn't have coaches on the sideline that then like got all the credit afterwards.
They didn't get credit,
That's
but
the
you had
difference.
people making all the money, and it wasn't the gladiators making the money.
Correct. But that's the point I'm making is like when you look back at that system, there's no like if you look at the not I'm a gladiator expert, but if you go back and look, like you would blame the system or the rulers or there's no like middle group of people that you're going to look at and be like, boy, they really enabled that. Like in the NCAA, coaches allowed a system because they were getting paid absorbent amount of money with very like little repercussion. And so they, instead of standing up, like, I love these players. I treat them like sons. Really? Then, like, if your son was getting ripped off in a system like this, would you have just like perpetuated it?
Nobody voluntarily gives up their power. But the reason is because Penn State fans don't care if the Penn State kids graduate. They don't care. And no school does. And I'm not saying, I had a good friend who was a Maryland basketball, loved Maryland basketball. And you remember the guy, Chris Wilcox, who played in the NBA for like 10 years?
Yeah.
He was from North Carolina. And I said to him, why do you think this kid came to Maryland? If he's that good, which he was good, he played in the league for 10 years. How do you think he got out of North Carolina? Why isn't he at Duke? Why isn't he at UNC? Is it because his grades are that bad? And my buddy and I love the guy, he looked at me and said, I don't care if he can read. As long as he can defend and rebound, that's all I care about. And that's what these fans, so that's why the system is corrupt. This isn't just about athletes. This isn't about student athletes playing. This is about hired guns.
I understand that. But you make it sound as if the fans are just as, what I'm saying to you is, I truly believe the number one people that could have stopped this were the coaches.
Of course they could.
Okay. But what I'm saying is you're almost defending the coaches. And you're saying like, well, if the fans didn't cheer, then it wouldn't. And all I'm saying is like, this was a system where I was told year in, year out, oh, I love this kid. I treat him like a son. Really? Okay, then like, why don't you make sure he gets paid for what he's doing?
But nobody in history gives away like their power. Like royal families are a joke. But if you're born into a royal family, you don't look at your neighbor and say, this is stupid. Why am I rich?
But you like, make it sound like you're excusing them because like, well, they're not just going to give up their power. Okay, I get that. Like, no one does, but that doesn't make them good people.
No, and I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
But it's like saying, you know who the first people that could have ended slavery? The plantation owners.
Yeah.
But why didn't they? Because it made their lives better. Okay. So they didn't care about the other one. Do you know who could have made the system better? The college coaches. Why were they going? They're making $100 million a year. Yeah. They love the system. They don't care about the kids.
So when we look back at this like 20 years from now, we're going to be like, they weren't good people. Like we're not. No. Like that's the reality of it. Like
and
all this.
I agree.
And listen, I'm sure like interpersonally, I'm sure Coach Krzyzewski means no harm. I'm sure the Dean Smiths of the world and all, I'm sure those people don't even realize the negative aspect that's going to come down the road 20, 30 years from now. But that is like when these dudes are making $5, $8, $10 million, and for years, these kids got nothing.
Oh, they got a free education.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to people, you're going to look back. I bet you a lot of these tributes and statues and stuff like that, like they're not going to be around. Like people aren't going to hold these names the way they do. It's already happening at Michigan, Ohio State. I don't know if you saw or not, but there was this whole bow nose thing during the Michigan Ohio State game. And there are numerous male athletes coming out along with like the female athletes basically saying that they were sexually abused and mistreated while they were athletes at Michigan and Ohio State. And they had this whole promotion for like Bo New, like all this stuff. I'm telling you, in the next 20 years, we are going to look at the system and we're going to move past the NCAA and we're going to look at coaches and be like, I cannot believe these people allowed some of this stuff to happen. It's happening. It's already happening.
But it's also, they've made this argument before. No coach has ever got fired over his graduation rate.
Sure.
Coaches get fired over their win-loss record.
Okay.
So if Penn State's new basketball coach, because who is their basketball coach now?
Shrewsbury.
How long has he been there?
This is his first year.
Oh, okay. So he is new. Okay. So if he comes in and he graduates 100% of his players, but he's next to last in the Big Ten for 3 years, he's going to get fired. But if he was making the tournament, if he was in the top half of the Big Ten and he didn't graduate any of his players, no one would care. And that comes back to because the fan base just doesn't care.
Okay.
And that is so the fans are at fault too. If the fans wanted this system to have any sense of purity, they could demand a little bit of it, but they don't. They just don't.
I don't disagree with that. I think there are fans who it's truly their escape. It is their way out of it. This is the difference that I would say. A fan is not getting paid $8 million from the university. They're not. And so the idea that I'm going to put X amount of blame on a fan versus the dude who's getting $8 million making promises to these kids, get out of here. I'm not comparing the two.
But if you
I'm not going to put any blame on a fan that should go to a coach. I'm not.
If you need an escape, watch the pro leagues. But don't have your escape being we're going to take advantage of this 19 and 20-year-old kid because we need an escape.
That's fine. But you think that's on a scale of 100, you think that's worth making the scale compared to the coach who's making $8 million while the kid who's helping them make the $8 million gets nothing?
No.
Okay, so I don't know what you're saying.
No, I mean, agree. But from a psychological standpoint, not just about coaches, but about anyone. Kids born into wealth. None of these kids, the kids who are in the lucky sperm club, that they don't look at the kid next to him and think oh, I should give half my money to you. I should give because I didn't do anything to deserve it. That's not how society works. So these coaches feel like this is society. And I deserve all this money because everybody else gets it.
But that's the weird part is guess what most of these coaches did when they were in college?
They played. And so they went through a system, and then when they got to the top of it, they acted as if they couldn't relate or know how awful it was that these dudes weren't getting compensated. I'm telling you, I don't want to harp on it anymore. I think you do agree with me in the sense we're going to look back and it's going to be bad. I'm not finding excuses for these coaches anymore. They're not. They had a chance for years, decades, to topple a system, and eventually society toppled it rather than the coaches who knew that this was a problem. But and that's what I'm saying.
Look in the mirror and realize that this system was not right. Crazy.
Find a place in history where the people that were in charge were bad and they toppled themselves. It never happened. It is an uprising from the people who have been put down.
Okay, that's fine. And would you agree that most of those people, when you look back, end up not being great people?
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Nope, we're in agreement on that.
Real quick, because
you know who are great people? Us.
Who?
Me and you. Yeah, me and you. Great people.
She says, actually, it's the only building standing behind the Jersey Shore State Bank in that open field, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's the reason why they shut down for a little bit. We opened Southside, money problem years ago. So there you go.
Okay.
That makes sense. I do want to mention the Maxwell trial again. Started yesterday. Did it
officially start? I know we talked about it. I knew it was coming. So
yes.
Yesterday was opening statements?
Officially started opening statements. Here's the one part that I want to make sure everyone understands. They're not going to be able to live stream this. They're not going to be able to video it, any of that, partly because it's a federal appearance.
Okay.
So for example, everyone was saying the Rittenhouse trial, it was live streaming and everything else. That's because it was a state. The judge gets to decide. Because this is federal, none of them are ever. That's why they always have the sketch composites and things like that, the drawings of it. However, if you went through, ABC News actually did do a 1 minute,
a minute,
60
They gave it 60 seconds.
ABC News did a 60 second. If anybody else saw it, please comment or mention it. I would like to know. I personally did not see it on any other, what would be considered a major cable nightly news. So if anybody else saw it, please mention it. But ABC News was the only one I saw, and they gave it about 60 seconds. There is another part of this too that's coming to light. The 4 people that are going to be witnesses in this trial, and I was actually talking with my cousin about this before the show. They are not the I don't want to say main witnesses, but when you go through what's happened in the Epstein case and what's happening now with the Maxwell one, they are not the people you would expect to come up to the stand, is like the most politically correct way that I can say it. There are more popular, more famous people that have come forward, that have come up to the mic and have said, like, I was sex trafficked by the Epsteins, or I was sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein. Those people are not going to be speaking. Why? Nobody's sure. Nobody actually knows why. And I've looked everywhere. I've looked at The Hill. I've looked on Breaking Points. I've looked at the AP. I've tried to find that as well, as to why these were the 4 witnesses that they are deciding to go with. My naive optimism is that they're keeping the best gun for last.
Okay.
That is like almost just because of what she's being tried for today, if it fails, doesn't mean they couldn't try her for a different crime later on.
Okay.
Okay. So that is my naive optimism.
And that makes sense.
The skeptical part of me believes that either there's so much money involved. There's so much money involved. The people, these main witnesses that they should be using, have essentially, they've been told, do not use these witnesses because they are the ones linked to the money. And so they went with 4 lesser witnesses that do not have the same ties. I know 2 out of the 4 witnesses, their only tie to Jeffrey Epstein is Jeffrey Epstein, if you see where I'm going with that. So what it feels like is these 4 witnesses that they have, the majority of their, it's not their conduct, but the majority of what happened to them is tied directly to Epstein and Maxwell, and thus not bringing in or linking in other names when they testify.
Did
that make sense?
Yes,
did I do an okay job of, okay.
If you're opening the prosecution, isn't your opening statement just like, she's guilty and we know it?
I think that's the most obvious. I mean, there's some of this stuff, like even reading a little bit of it this morning, there is this idea that this is supposed to be Jeffrey Epstein's trial. And so the defendants are...
He's dead.
Like he is.
Just to give an update.
Yes.
This breaking news. He's dead.
Yes. And so what the defense is saying, what Maxwell's defense is saying, is that this is Jeffrey Epstein's trial and she is not Jeffrey Epstein. And so there is, I don't want to call it a fear, but I have this subconscious thought of, if they can pull this off, of kind of like, these were Jeffrey Epstein's dealings, this is Jeffrey Epstein's trial, and if the jury gets to a point where they feel like they're being talked to about Epstein instead of Maxwell, who knows? Now, it seems like a no-brainer, like an absolute no. Do you know, well,
hold on here before you go on.
Ahead.
I have one comment and one question. My comment is, you have no faith in this trial at all.
Who, me?
You.
No, I don't.
You have none. You can just tell.
I don't.
You have none.
And again, it just comes back to that. I get it's a federal case. I get it can't be live streamed. I understand the legality of it. I'm not implying that like the legal system is trying to sweep this trial under the rug. I'm not. Like, I understand there's formalities applied to it. What I am saying is that there's so much money involved going into this trial. It is not a coincidence that these witnesses are not the witnesses that you or me or anybody else would have picked.
And you're not saying, like, she's going to be found guilty. I'm not debating that. But is she going to be found guilty while protecting as many people?
Yes.
Like, they don't care. The world, the government, the powers that be don't care about her.
No.
They care about protecting the other people that are associated with her.
Jeffrey Epstein was going to be the head to roll, and then Maxwell now is the head to roll. The fear isn't so much that she will be let off, as you hinted at. The fear is that she will be the only one.
Correct.
The fear is that this trial will go through, she will be convicted, and that will be the end of it.
Is there no chance? Now, this is my question. Is there no chance that he's still alive? And that his friends, in high places, got him out of jail.
So before you do this, so that was the court. Now let's give opinion and let's give conspiracy, and we can have some fun. So go ahead.
Is there any
those are
chance?
two.
Because
those are two
I'm not a
very different
conspiracy
things.
theorist.
No, you're not.
It would not shock me at all if Jeffrey Epstein was still alive.
It wouldn't shock me if Jeffrey Epstein was still alive. I will say this. I do think he's dead. Personal opinion. I think he's dead. I think he was killed. Personal opinion. These are all personal opinions. I think he was killed. I don't think he killed himself. I don't. That's an opinion. 100%
Now, and
opinion.
you think he was killed by fellow prisoners, or you think he was killed by the powers that be to make sure he didn't sink?
I don't think he was killed by where he was being held at. It was almost impossible for him to be killed by another prisoner. The other aspect of it too is it almost would be impossible for him to kill himself, because where he was left, the people who are put where he was put, these are people that they know are flight risks. They're suicide risks. Like, these are people who, like, this is their last string. Like, this is, and so for him to get away or for him to kill himself, the most likely scenario is that he was killed. But again, these are all opinions.
And I agree with you. If I had to pick one side or the other, I would say he's dead. But it would not shock me if he was not.
Nothing would shock me with this because, again, there's so much power, money and power behind it. And so, again, this Maxwell trial, I can't express enough. Stay up with it.
How can we? You even said a minute. That's all. I have to stay up with a minute. That was my homework.
You can find, if you look at the right places, try to find some central news places, go to the AP. You can follow this trial. The brief parts of it you can follow along with, because the mainstream media is not going to help you follow this. They are not.
No, because to make a bad pun, they were in bed with Jeffrey Epstein.
The majority of them were.
Is it Epstein or Stein?
It doesn't matter.
I think it's
at this point it doesn't matter. There's one witness that they're going to bring up, and the list she is actually she gave her list of people that she was trafficked to. And these are multiple politicians in America, numerous moguls, billionaires, and she has the full list. And that's one girl.
And you said she is testifying?
And she is going to testify. But this is...
Is she the girl in Australia?
No, I don't think she's testifying. She's one of them, and she's not.
You know who I'm talking about from the documentary.
And I believe she's not one of the people that's going to testify.
Okay.
But this is the point I'm making. That one girl, the one girl that's going to be a witness, and she has already come out and said multiple politicians, all this stuff. And I'm telling you, like, if you just do the math, this one person, and you just multiply it out by how many people they trafficked and how many people they had connections to and everything else, it just goes to show you, if they're willing to let this one girl testify, and those are the names above them. I mean, these are the elite of the elite they're not on trial yet, and my fear is that they never will be on trial.
No, I'm with you.
That is the fear.
I am with you.
And I say this as condescendingly as I can. Kudos to the mainstream media and kudos to the power and the money behind it, because they are doing a really good job right now of making this as quiet as it can possibly be. It is almost shocking how quiet this trial is so far.
Yes, I'm with you.
It is. All right. Anything else?
Yeah. So you're going to keep reminding.
Oh, yeah. Every day. We're not getting off of it.
I have one funny stat for you.
Okay.
And this is back to football because I'm a sports nerd like this. And so a buddy of mine posted this up, and I don't know if it was before the weekend, through the weekend, whatever, but he threw this stat up. If your team and your quarterback had 40 pass attempts in a game, okay, so you're an NFL team and your quarterback just threw it 40 times that game, okay, and your name is not Tom Brady. If Tom Brady throws it 40 times, you're going to win. Everybody else, there were 42 games coming up to last weekend or whenever, 42 games where the starting quarterback threw 40 or more passes. What do you think the record was for that team in those 42 games?
500.
11-31.
Isn't that a skewed stat, though?
No.
It has to be, and here's why. Let's say on a normal game, they would have thrown 30. Most of those games, they ended up throwing 40 because they were behind.
Maybe.
No, it's a skewed stat.
Maybe.
It's a skewed stat.
It shows
It's a skewed stat.
that the world believes that all you got to do is chuck the ball around, and you do 11 and 31 is outrageous.
I agree with your principle. I disagree with your stat and correlation. I agree with you that there's this false principle that you can just sling the ball around the yard and everything will work out. I disagree with you that you think that stat correlates to prove it. Because I would argue most teams that lose threw more in general, because just the score and style of play dictates that you have to.
But you have to, and I understand if you're getting crushed. Like, I don't know how many times the Steelers threw it the other day. Mm-hmm. But the other fact is, if you're getting crushed that bad, Ben didn't play the whole game. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able, you don't have to. The teams that still run the ball, as Tampa did the other day with Tom Brady, Fournette had like 4 touchdowns.
Okay.
There's still an old school aspect of sports that, and you're seeing these teams like the 49ers all of a sudden who win all the time, and they just run the ball. And the Ravens who went 14-2 and just run the ball. And this belief that you don't have to run the ball anymore in the NFL, and they're proving it wrong.
Well, I think it swings. I think what you've seen happen is defenses have gotten quicker, and thus by
less powerful.
And thus, if you're a team that can run the football a little bit, you can take advantage of that.
Yes.
So I agree with you. The pendulum certainly can never go too far one way. Once the pendulum gets to a certain point, it naturally is going to swing back. In your old school, like the principles of football that you are speaking about, they certainly become more effective than what they had been before the pendulum swung.
I do get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's funny. And he was like, I just saw this and I thought, so I did all the research. He went through every game because, why wouldn't we do that?
No.
But there you go.
Sense.
There's your stat.
What's the most you ever threw it in a game? 10 seconds.
30.
That was the most.
30.
Ever. So you're jealous is what you're saying.
Oh my God. They threw it all the time. The way, compared to the way we did it back then, I played I was 2 years varsity quarterback. Uh-huh. We played 15. I started 27 games as a high school quarterback. Never, ever, ever did we send 4 guys out in a pattern. Okay. Never. We only sent 3. So we always had enough guys to block. Now, we would have guys that when you went scramble mode, then they abandoned ship and they would add themselves to the pattern just as like a playground ad lib.
Right.
But these, they talk about 4 verticals. We never had 4 receivers. Sure. How do we do 4 verticals?
Sure.
So, yeah, there's a little bit of jealousy.
A little bit. I could tell.
A little bit.
I could tell by your 1 minute answer to my 10-second question. There's a little bit of jealousy.
Whatever.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors, including Wise Markets. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
That's it.
That's
all I got.
That's all you got. I'm Jeff Everett.
Tomorrow's December.
Tomorrow is this. Isn't that crazy? It's kind of bonkers.
Christmas music? Do you start it tomorrow or have you already started?
I think we talked about this.
Thanksgiving is the day.
In a normal year for me, Black Friday is the day. Okay. So it's decorations, music can start. That's, for me personally, that. So that shifts, right? Sometimes it's a little earlier, sometimes a little later. Depends on where Thanksgiving falls.
I would love, and I know we said we were going to be done and now we're still talking. I would love to talk to those radio stations who just play all Christmas music because I'm sure there's people that love it.
Sure.
I know there's people that hate it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's easy. I mean, do you even need a DJ?
No, you don't.
Do you just, everybody's off for December
That's why they do it. Don't you think so?
I think it's part of it. I just wonder if they lose money on the process or do they make money on the process? Because their ratings have to go down.
We should have somebody from radio come on. Do they know how many people are actually listening?
It's a very, very hard.
And okay. And so then B, like, I don't know if it makes a difference.
Well, and you might be right. There are, like, they used to have Nielsen ratings for television. Do they still have Nielsen ratings?
I think they do, but it's
now that things are digital. Mm-hmm. You can actually tell what, before you just had to go on the honor system. These are the shows I watch. Sure. I remember as a kid, we'd get the Nielsen rating cards. You had to fill it out and mail it in.
Right.
Radio, they have the same thing. It's called Arbitron. But when you ask people, have you ever got an Arbitron booklet in the mail? And the vast majority of people say no.
Okay.
But that's how they usually generate it. Again, now that's all digital, not all digital, but it's different. But yeah, they can't. I don't think they can tell when you're driving down the road what you're listening to.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I think it was GE. I forget who I just saw, but they just put out a front panel for one of their vehicles that did not have AM/FM. Did you see that?
No.
It was I'm forgetting the car maker now, but it was going to be the first one that there was no cassette, there was no CD, and there was no AM/FM. And now I'm blanking on it. I don't want to give wrong information. I'm forgetting the car company now. But anyway,
guess who wouldn't buy that car?
You. So anyway, my point being is like I just don't know. I know there are people that listen to the radio. I'm not sitting here saying like it's dead. But what I'm saying, like my friends and family, I don't know how many of us listen to the radio.
Your friends and family just need an aux cord.
We need an aux cord or sometimes like Bluetooth. Like it's okay. Like it's, so I'm curious. I actually might do a poll. That would be a good poll for us.
Do you listen to the radio?
Do you listen to the radio? Yes or no? I cannot tell you the last time I honestly listened to the radio.
For me, it was yesterday.
It was this morning when you got in your car.
No, because I probably had a CD in. I still play the front loader CD.
Okay.
And that's
what works for you then.
Yeah.
I can't tell. It's so funny. Well, you gave me a DVD to watch, and I was like, I'm not outside of my laptop.
Yeah,
I don't know how to watch it. Yeah.
I need to. One of them I need to watch.
I haven't watched them yet.
I know. That's why. Well, you're not going to, so give them back.
But I remember we got a CD, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't know how I'm going to play this.
I gave my daughter a CD for Christmas once, and she's like, Dad, what am I going to do with this? And I said, oh, then I'll keep it. And I did, and I love it.
Well, how do you have a boombox at home?
Well, in my car, I play it. But yeah, you can go to Walmart and buy a $25 CD.
I understand.
Portable CD
I understand the logistics of like getting one. The point is like,
no, they're so cheap.
The point is, why would I? Is like what I'm getting.
Oh no, I do. And after a couple of years, they break because they're like $25, and I go get another one.
Huh. I used to have, like, growing up, I had this white boombox, and we used it for everything. But now, like, if I took a CD somewhere right now, like, I don't even know how.
When I was a kid, we had the dual cassette boom boxes.
Oh my! I had one of those. So
Did you really?
You could record.
You could record one-to-one. Oh, you had those.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were too young.
No. That was. I mean, I was young.
That was it, buddy. When your buddy came home and he's like, I just bought the new Van Halen tape, and then you could copy it,
dub it.
Oh.
I remember listening to the radio, and we would sit and we would wait because it was cycled.
Oh, yeah.
It was like hourly. So you knew when certain songs coming. So you'd get the blank cassette tape, you'd punch it in, and you'd sit there, and as soon as the song would start, you'd record, and you'd have to sit there through the whole song. And then when it ended, you tried to end it right at the,
That's why we love Casey Kasem in the weekly top 40.
Yeah, but you didn't want Casey Kasem's voice. At least we didn't. Like, you wanted a clean cut of the song.
The people who talked over the intro were the worst.
I remember, what song was it? I think it might have been NSYNC's first. I think it was NSYNC Bye Bye Bye, like when it first came out. I remember it took my sister and I like 5 efforts to get a clean cut because the dude on, I think it was Wink 106, anybody who's up north knows Wink 106, the guy, every time before the song would end, he'd start talking over it. And so we'd be like, oh, and then we'd have to wait for it.
And you were devastated.
We were, at the time, we were devastated. And we would have to wait for it to cycle back through to try to hit it just right on the double record. So this is, I've talked to you before. I am of a weird gap. There's a 5-year gap where I did all the things you had to do. But I know I could sit down with Jimmy today and him and I could almost, like, I would know how to do everything Jimmy knows how to do. And it's only like this 5-year window. Like, it's like from 85 to 90. Like, if you were born between 85 to 90, you didn't have a cell phone in school. Like, you didn't have a desktop at home until you got into like 18 in the college. Like, I lived very similar to you, but yet I still can do everything Jimmy could do.
So you're weird. You're the wonderkin.
It's not wonderkin. It's just this weird 5-year gap.
You're the opposite of, as I've said before, we were dumber than our parents. Now we're dumber than our kids. My generation is the one that's been dumber our whole life.
That's rough.
It is.
That explains all the whining.
Who whines?
I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Thanks for watching.